February 25, 2026. This is the S&P 500 E-futures mini on the 2002 chart using NinjaTrader 8. This is what the chart looked like today. There was no economic data to really move the market. So in the pre-market, it looked like it pushed two legs up. Well, maybe just one big leg up. There's kind of a small little reaction here. Then it was just sideways, then a shallow leg up, followed by a second shallow leg here. I tried to find, but it doesn't really help, especially if I have to wait till the end of the day to see if there's some kind of bigger channel and I encapsulate this. But by the time you have a third touch confirmation right here, this channel isn't very useful because you can already tell the day is leaning toward a bullish day. And there's so much empty space here. This third confirmation, would you really trust, this as a key entry point? Probably not. So I did manage to take one trade today, and at the time it looked good. But then I did a historical data reload about in this region, and then the setup changed, as well as what I marked previously, this higher low also changed. So now the trade that I took looks like a very terrible setup, but at the time it was pretty good. I'll get into it when I get there. And the historical data reload was mainly due because I have this tick counter on my chart, and I noticed right about here it paused. And it paused for longer than it usually does because, sometimes it takes a little bit of time before things get moving. And so to kind of like bump it or to get pretty much the chart to print again in NinjaTrader, I had to do a historical data reload. The other option was to like close up NinjaTrader completely, reopen it, and I didn't really want to do that. So that's what it did. And then the candles all kind of, the overall trend, like nothing affects that because it just shows you the overall context and that stays the same. But individual setups and candles, they all get adjusted slightly. And in my case, my setup and the trade that I took, although it was profitable, now looks like a really stupid trade, like really terrible. I'm going to go into the setups right now. The pre-market, there was a push up, sell off, kind of makes a double bottom, hits sideways, and it starts rallying up what I thought was this green up channel. In the pre-market, I thought I saw this as, I didn't see in real time, but in hindsight review, looked like there was a new high, first entry long pullback, second entry long, decent signal bar. If you trust this green up channel support, that's a decent possible trade because it's also in a range, well, potential range right here, be coming up from the bottom of the range. So then pushes out on the open, it pushes up and it just starts moving sideways. EMA is starting to creep up to become a support. This is a possible trade that I thought. So it makes a new high of day, then it sells off. So it creates a first entry long. Technically, you could say there's a second entry long here, but I don't really like counting these when the candle is inside to the previous and it's a doji. So I usually just count it as one leg right here. So it's like the first entry long, pullback, second entry long. It's a triple test, second entry long right here, decent signal bar. This also changed, but it doesn't change the category that I put it in. So it didn't turn into an almost trade after the data reload. But I will say it didn't look as nice. The signal bar didn't look as nice previously. Then when I did a historical data reload, this one suddenly looks fantastic. So it's a decent signal bar, close to high, enough for a quick 1-point scalp. It is getting pretty close though, but this could be the higher of the range, or it could actually be up here. So I thought this is a possible trade. Fortunately, you don't get a higher low. It creates a first entry long pullback, second entry long, doji, just kind of floating out in the middle of nowhere. You could say maybe it's in a range, but this range just feels a little very tight. So I just didn't really like it. Sells off, one leg down, pull back, second leg down, rallies up, then pushes down a second time, and it starts moving into sideways consolidation. This is where I took my trade and where kind of things now, after the fact, look like it's a terrible setup. So even I would look at this and wonder why the heck anybody would take this trade. So I'll tell you what I was seeing at the time. There was the way it was set up like a first entry short, a second entry short, and then there was a possible higher low here. But this higher low I did have in my notes as a possible trade, but now after the fact, it looks terrible because it's just a doji, well, a neutral bar, but it closed much nicer, and I thought it might have been a possible trade. It was kind of closing a little bit higher than this. I'm flashing through right now this range. So I thought there's a possible trade here, but since it closed back below, After the fact, the data reload makes it look like a terrible trade. Then I also grouped this. This stayed the same because there's two bottoms here. I grouped this as a localized low. I said it first entry short, pullback, second entry short failure. So this is where I took my trade, and now it looks terrible because also this bar closed lower. There's no reason for me, if this was in real time, I would not have entered a trade just kind of right here in the middle of nowhere on this candle. This candle actually closed lower, and I actually entered kind of at the highs. So this is a little wonky now because it looks like I just haphazardly entered it without any confirmation that this candle was going to break above this guy, because this was it's a little, I think this is also peaked below this uh, peaked below this guy. But anyways, that was what I was thinking at the time. First entry short, second entry short. My thinking was it encapsulated, it had a good engulfing of this previous bar, but it doesn't now. I entered the high of this previous one, went for 6 tick scalp, got it, no runner, and then reversed on me. But if you're to see this candle now, there's no trade here. So unfortunately, it's hard for me to explain that, but I know what I have in my notes. And in this case, I was profitable, and I was, if you look at it this way in real time and as it's set up now, then I just look like this just looks like a really bad trade. Breakout, then it pushes down this orange down channel. This is smooth slightly. NinjaTrader has a tendency to do that. I think the candles, if you have the snap functionality on, then sometimes as the candles are printing, these kind of jostle and move a bit. So okay though. Prices then move sideways, the new low, first entry short. Technically have a second short bad signal bar. I also started just re-reviewing the charts after the data reload. So there's some things that I marked previously that I've deleted now because otherwise they look like just arrows or almost trades just kind of float out in the middle of nowhere for whatever reason, because now the chart, if this is the latest and greatest, it doesn't match up to what I saw previously. Prices move up, breaks out of the low side of the range, creates a localized high. So it's the first entry long, another localized high. It's a first entry long. Fortunately, you don't get a second entry long. Prices move up, break of the screen up channel, test the high again. I think I marked something here, an arrow, because it looked like there was some potential here, but I know it wasn't a trade because I didn't like that it was far from the EMA. So after the historical data reload, it doesn't affect that. It's still going to stay away from the EMA, but at least the setup previously I thought looked a little closer. Starts moving sideways. I was thinking at the time, before the historical data reload, there's potentially a range here. Then when it made a double bottom, I dragged it down to here. And I think these candles might have been affected slightly, but doesn't matter now. Creates a localized low, first entry short pullback, second entry short failure, but technically it hasn't failed on this candle yet. So there's no trade here. Plus the danger is, although you're breaking out of this range and you're potentially going to push up, you could argue it's going to test the highs of this, but if this blue dotted line, which is representing and it tracks the high of this trading day, was much higher, then there might have been a trade here. But since you're going to be buying right into the highs and market's already tested the high previously, the candle previous, it just feels a little riskier. If it had an EMA touch, maybe that would be another reason, but it didn't quite have that. Prices move up, starts moving sideways. You have a localized high, first entry long pullback. Technically, you have a second entry long here, but it looks like it's maybe a double. You can regroup it, recategorize this as the localized high and say it's a first entry long pullback, second entry long. Unfortunately, this is inside of this. I did have this drawn as a support, later turned into a range after this candle prints. Then I actually created this as a range, but in real time, it's too early to do that. So you could argue there's a triple or multiple test, but I didn't really quite like that. Prices then continue moving. It breaks out of this range, trying to test the high of this potential yellow up channel. This kind of keeps going, breaks out of this green up channel, tests the high, and it just keeps going. Clearly a bullish move. Localized high, it's a first entry long. So now this is all data review after the historical data review. So this second entry long being an almost trade was what I actually thought about it, representative of the actual what the chart looks like now. First entry long pullback, second entry long. I like that it engulfed this guy, moved 1 tick below and flushed up. The only issue was that I would be buying into the localized high of, well, not the localized, the high of day, and there's not enough for a clean scalp to get out. So it's called an almost trade. I do like that it bounced off the EMA, and there's really only a double test, not quite a triple test. So it took away from the possibility of this being a possible trade. If I did enter, I think I'd still be in the trade, and then this candle probably would have stopped me out. If this one didn't, because my stop would have been below this double bottom, this candle or this candle definitely would have stopped me out. Pushes down. Looks like it's moving down this orange down channel, but it's not the most reliable. It's kind of wide for the how many candles it printed. Starts reversing up. It's entering the last 30 minutes of the day, and to be honest, I really didn't feel after taking this trade, slowly digging out of my red day yesterday, that I wanted to risk any additional uh, potential of getting something wrong, especially when it's so late in the day. And it was a really slow day. You could tell there's not very many candles printed, and the volume was lower today. So it pushes up, kind of hits the high side. I established this as maybe a channel, but this established rather late because you could look at the timestamp. It's only like less than 10 minutes left, so definitely not going to be trying to take a trade here. Pushes down, bounces here, which is pretty nice. So it has third touch confirmation. This could be a channel, but it doesn't matter because it's too late in the day. I think this big reaction was NVIDIA having the earnings. I suppose maybe, yeah, I just looked. NVIDIA did have the market reaction was positive to it, so it did spike up. And I think since it's such a large followed company, this spike up caused other companies to also move up and in general just kind of drag the market up. So it doesn't matter because I don't really trade in this time frame. And overall, kind of a wonky day. I think for things like this, I need to go in and clear out my NinjaTrader cache and kind of delete some of the old data so that when it reloads, I get kind of fresh data because I think as the data file stacks up, any refreshes cause NinjaTrader to sometimes group picks or trades in one candle. Like for instance, the data that was contained in the, well, I'll just talk it about this way. The data contained in this candle, if it drags further out and there's more data in that file, I think when you do a refresh, it takes it from a certain point in time and it could affect it by putting some of this data into the previous candle, which then makes this candle close high and low and open affected. So it might not quite look the same. And I believe that's what happened today with my data refresh, which caused the setups now to look a little odd. So hopefully that was helpful.